Good afternoon and welcome to this public forum. Welcome councillors, welcome to the many people in the public gallery. It's great to see so many people take part in our democracy. Unlike other countries of the world, we have a chance for people to speak to the people who make decisions. We'll listen and take on board what you have to tell us. So I remind all people attending this meeting that it is being webcast on YouTube with audio and vision. Recording of the public forum is available on the internet and is required to be available for 12 months. Private recordings, including taking photographs by members of the public gallery, are not allowed. This ruling is to maintain the integrity of the meeting's proceedings. Would you please ensure all your devices, like mobile phones, are on silent mode? On behalf of the Council, I welcome all people in the public gallery and observing live on the internet in this public forum. I acknowledge that this meeting is on Dunghutti land, and we pay respects to elders past and present. We also welcome any other Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander people with us. Before we get to the speaking part, I'll now call for any conflicts of interest declarations from councillors or staff. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest in item 11.3 in relation to the proposal for bitumen sealing of Spooners Avenue, as I live on Spooners Avenue and have owned property out there for 15 plus years, and I've always owned or lived on the tarred section. So I believe that this doesn't.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. You're actually on the seal section, and the motion is about the unsealed section. So thank you for that. I'm declaring a non-pecuniary, non-significant interest in the item on the airport, which is 10.7, which is the master plan, as I live within 5 kilometres of the airport. Are there any other declarations? If not, I now acknowledge all those attending the public forum, the councillors Anthony Patterson and Deputy Mayor, Councillor Dean Saul, Councillor Alexandra Wyatt, Councillor Simon Ferguson, Councillor Kerry Riddington, Councillor Scott Butterfield, and online we have Councillor Kenny Ring and Councillor Arthur Bain. Council staff in attendance here today are Mr. Craig Milburn, General Manager, Mr. Michael Jackson, Director of Operations and Planning, Acting Director of Corporate and Commercial, Mr. Daniel Thorogood, and Manager of Government and Information Services. He's got 2 hats on today. Well done, Mr. Thorogood. Acting. Oh, he's acting. Oh, so we have a thespian company here, lots of acting going on, but thank you very much for all of your acting. And other staff are here too to do with the briefing that follows the public forum. I welcome them as well. I'd now ask the General Manager, Mr. Craig Milburn, to outline the guidelines for this public forum, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. From Council's Code of Meeting Practice, the following guidelines apply to speakers of the public forum. Each speaker will be allowed 5 minutes to address the Council. This time is strictly enforced by the chairperson. Speakers at public forums must not digress from items on the agenda. If a speaker digresses to irrelevant matters, the chairperson is to direct the speaker not to do so. If the speaker fails to observe a direction from the chairperson, the speaker will be asked to return to their seat. A councillor may, through the chairperson, ask questions of a speaker following the address. Questions put to speakers must be direct, succinct, and without argument. Speakers are under no obligation to answer a question put to them by a councillor. However, if you do, you have a limit of 1 minute to reply. Speakers at forums cannot ask questions of the council, councillors or council staff. When addressing the council, speakers of public forums must comply with this code and other relevant codes and policies of council. Speakers must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of the council's code of conduct, or making other potentially defamatory remarks. If the chairperson considers that the Speaker of the public forum is engaged in that type of conduct, they may request that the person refrain from inappropriate behaviour and to withdraw and unreservedly apologise for any inappropriate comments. Where the Speaker fails to comply with the chairperson's request, the chairperson may immediately require the person to stop speaking.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Very clear. We have 4 speakers today, and the order of speakers are Steve Sproul, Daniil Banham, Mary Lou Lewis, and Sherry Muttle. So our first speaker today is Steve Sproul. He's going to be speaking against agenda item 11.3, notice of motion, review priority listing for bitumen sealing of Spooners Avenue. Mr. Steve Sproul, you're on, and 5 minutes starts when you speak, and you have a challenge in making sure the red light comes on by pressing the button, please. Yes, got it. Well done.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, councillors, General Manager. Thanks for allowing me to address Councillor Patton's notice of motion to have Spooners Avenue placed at number 1 on the priority listing for tar sealing. Members of the Don Linglong RFS family community have petitioned Council for nearly 30 years to have Pipers Creek Road sealed, and we're pleased to note it's been on the priority number 1 list for a number of years and believe it should remain as such. We sympathise with the residents of Spooners Avenue as we're both in the same boat. We put up with dust, potholes, speeding and serious accidents. The relentless dust creates the health problems because it pollutes the air, our rainwater tanks and vegetable gardens. Our last MP, Melinda Pavey, promised local residents that Pipers Creek Road would be tar sealed, but alas, never eventuated. Hopefully, Council will follow up with a new MP, Mr Michael Kemp, to finish what Melinda promised and discuss any other funding options that arise. There are approximately 48 houses fronting Pipers Creek Road, and we have 13 roads feeding into it. There are 6 school bus movements a day, 3 state forests that log regularly, and more people moving into our area. Our road is also the flood-free route from Wittitram. There is a lot of emergency calls for our fire brigade to travel to and from the station and respond in timely manners to call-outs. 3 residents have also paid a hefty amount to tar seal their own properties to protect their health and business interests. We trust that you'll maintain the current priority listing as is, that Pipers Creek Road number 1, Spooners Avenue 2, and then go back to Pipers Creek Road for stage 2. I don't have any road traffic data. The last one we had was back in, when it was done in 2017, I think it was, and we had quite a high count then, and I assume that if it happened again, we'd most probably come in front again, but I'd just remind you that it's great to be on a priority listing and hope to see some action will be forthcoming whenever it is in Parliament or government. Thank you. Turn the hit button.
Thank you. We might have some questions for you, Mr. Sproul. Thank you. I have a question. Councillor Patterson, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sproul, for representing today. Do you have any sort of, I suppose, numbers or any sort of anything written down to show that what sort of development has been happening out in that area since, say, in the last 5 years, for instance, of the Pipers Creek? And you did mention the number of residents, but has there been new estates or anything like that out there?
Not on actual Pipers Creek Road due to the planning laws. That's basically down on Marys Bay Road. We've got 2 new subdivisions down there, but people do like to do the circuit and drive round.
Yeah.
There's also where our fire shed is, there's also a community park. Yeah. And it's the closest one to the area, and people utilise that. And so they do travel either coming in from Wirring Drive or Gowings Hill Road to come through.
Yeah. Another question too, sir. As council, we're here to represent the whole community, and it's very hard picking and choosing. I believe that different circumstances change. What would your response be if council would hold or conducted another review like 5 years ago on the road. What would you think about that? On those priority roads.
Well, I think it's fine. It'll just show the numbers, I think, on both roads. And whatever will be. But it's up to you guys to decide if you want to do another count or not. But irrespective of the road count, we both areas realise that there's a lot more traffic on the road, and something should be done as soon as possible on any of the roads. But as you said, it comes back to the motion that was put back in that you'll only complete them if you've got 75% funding from another source. Yep. But it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be pushed, our local members and things, and state and federal.
And I want to thank you again for representing.
No, thank you.
Mr. Sproul, another question, if I may. Yep. You told us that Pipers Creek Road is a flood-free route for people at Petitron. At correct. What point would they be using that road? Like, what height of flood would they have to come that way? Anytime
the causeway goes under.
So how often does that happen? Is 1 in 5 year flood, 1 in 10 year flood? Do you know the frequency?
No, but usually because the causeway is one of the first ones that goes under, and any of the minor floods upriver due to the catchment, and it's only a shallow causeway. And over the last previous years, it was closed off for weeks up there. So just depends on the weather patterns when they come through. I don't keep numbers of it, unfortunately. Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, councillors? If not, I thank you very much, Mr. Sproul, for your presentation. Hit the red button.
I'll leave it going. I'm sure the next speaker needs to speak out loud. Thank you. Our next speaker is Danielle Benham, and she's going to be speaking for 11.3, Notice of Motion, Review of Priority Listing for Bitumen Sealing of Spooners Avenue. Welcome, Danielle, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Danielle Benham, and I am a resident of Spooners Avenue for the past 11 years. I am here to represent the residents of Spooners Avenue Action Group and our wider Macleay Valley community. The importance that Spooners Avenue plays in times of flood and other natural disasters such as the 2019 fires, in the Macleay Valley is, we believe, to be severely undervalued when our community is in times of great need. Spooners Avenue is the Macleay Valley's designated and signposted flood-free route. In times of flood, emergency services such as the SES, police, fire and ambulance are all heavily relying just on this one road to be able to service our rather extensive community in what is a very trying, desperate time. In particular, to reach the residents of the Lower Macleay at Smithtown, Gladstone, South West Rocks and Fredericton. It is also an important link road reaching further afield to places north of Kempsey, such as Stewart's Point, Maxville and south to Port Macquarie, etc. in flood events. Livestock farmers are critically dependent on this road to move cattle from the Lower Macleay to upriver west of Kempsey, with great urgency in times of flood. The amount of livestock farmers, emergency services and Kempsey Shire residents utilising this road in times of flood is truly staggering to be witnessed firsthand, as is the amount of accidents and very close near misses. What is a very outdated, unsealed road essentially turns into a highway with tremendously high dangerous volumes of traffic. Residents past and present have been lobbying Kempsey Shire Council back as early as 1982 to have the road sealed and upgraded. Each time met with promises it would be done in the next year or that council term to no avail. Residents have had meetings with past and present mayors, councillors, local members as far back as 1985. Petitions signed, media involvement, you name it, it's been done. We believe that the economic benefit this road has to offer our Shire is also greatly underestimated. In times of non-flood, it is a main link road connecting Upper Columbatti, Fredericton to Greenhill and our upriver communities west of Kempsey. Traffic volumes in particular of heavy vehicles using the road have dramatically increased the past 10 years. Recently, there was an incident involving 2 trucks on the highway, which saw the highway closed for almost 2 days. Traffic was then diverted onto the Macleay Valley Way, in turn causing another accident between Kempsey and Fredericton. And once again, Spooners Avenue was the only option for the highway traffic and the wider Kempsey community to continue functioning. We have many safety concerns and a high number of accidents occurring on a regular basis due to the poor maintenance schedule, blind corners, potholes and corrugations. We, the residents, can also not receive a garbage collection due to the road being unsealed. Spooners Avenue is both a school and community bus route. The road is simply not wide enough for the school bus to pass another car, let alone a heavy vehicle. We have serious concerns for the safety of the children on the school bus due to the unsealed poor condition of the road, as well as factoring in the large number of blind corners. Dust is also impacting residents' lives and health due to most dwellings being in a very close proximity to the road. We fear for what is in the fine dust we are breathing in over a long-term period and the lasting impacts it will have for the health of many generations to come. Are we breathing in silica particles, a dangerous component that can be found in crushed gravel, rock and quartz materials sourced from quarries?
1 minute to go.
We strongly believe that Spooners Avenue needs to be number 1 on Council's priority list to speed up gaining funding from the state government, as the benefit to such a wide and far-reaching part of our community and beyond is huge. We too have been very patient for a very long time to have this road tarred and upgraded. I urge you all to take what I have presented to you today into very serious consideration, as 30 plus years of promises to get this important piece of infrastructure upgraded is far too long in the eyes of a huge percentage of residents in our shire. We would like to see it sealed before the next flood event. Lastly, to get this done in your term as council, mayor and general manager, it would leave a huge legacy, one of great impact and benefit to the residents of our valley for a very long time. Thank you for your time and consideration on this important issue.
Thank you. Ms. Banham, do you, Steve, got any questions for you? Councillor Patterson has a question.
About 5 or 6.
Well, you can have 5 or 6. It's called democracy at work. Go for it.
Yes.
Thank you, Danielle, for representation again. Danielle, I said only fair to ask a very similar question to yourself. How much development, just shortly, how much development has happened in the Spooners Avenue area that you know of in the recent times, in the last 5 years?
In the last 5 years, every single remaining block on the unsealed section of the road has been purchased. Lots of houses are being built. The road is definitely a lot busier. It's an important link road between a lot of different areas. A lot of heavy vehicles are using it, and yeah.
Okay. Next question. Similar. Being on the priority list, I mean, council, and I'm asking you this, the council's priority is to maintain that our roads are always safe and you know, to the best of their ability. But would you be satisfied if council conducted another review on the gravel roads on that hierarchy list, and it may have a different outcome?
Sure, I'm open to that. As you said, things often need to be reviewed in any circumstances, especially within council. You do the same when you run a business. Yeah. I really strongly believe that this has a huge, far more reaching benefit to the community to be sealed and upgraded, and yeah.
Couple more questions. You do realise it's the council's like in the notice motion, that council's really needing 75% funding before anything like that can sort of proceed. Mm-hmm. Do you realise it's unfunded?
Yep, I'm well aware of that. They need ultimately 100%, but minimum of 75%.
Do you have an approximate number of Spooners Avenue Action Group members?
We're probably at least 30, 40 members. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, just a few more questions, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Patterson, go ahead.
Do you know if the road is tarred, that there will be more than likely speeding issues, and do you realise that then the police will actually be able to enforce speed limits?
Yeah, we've already got a lot of speeding issues, a lot of accidents due to the unsealed road, the loose gravel on the corners. I personally had, in time of flood, 3 people go through my front fence in 1 hour. At least if it is tarred, it will be to a safer standard for the community, and the police will be able to enforce the speed limit.
2 more questions, thank you. You mentioned that Spooners Avenue is used as a highway alternative. How much does this increase the traffic? You know, is it like tenfold? Is it 2 more cars? Is it trucks and etc.?
I'd say minimum tenfold. It's quite dramatic, the increase to watch it happen. It's very, very frightening to witness. And due to it being unsealed, people just don't seem to have the driving capabilities, especially if they're not a resident, to know which direction the next corner is going to go, or to how to kind of take that corner, or at what speed. So yeah, a lot of accidents, danger to, the motorists because they don't know the road.
Yeah. Thank you. My last question. You know that the government has a basic sort of average of passes on a road, on a gravel road, that when it's exceeded, that gravel road then is really put as a hierarchy of to being tarred for safety reasons. Do you think if council has another review on that, do you think it should be when the road is being bypassed and used as a highway again, or do you think it should be like a Sunday afternoon?
No, I think it needs to be like immediately, like if there was something like the other week, the accident on the highway, as a priority to council to get council staff out there to, if it's possible, capture that data. I think there was, at some stage during the last time it was used in a minor flood, they did get out there and put traffic counters on the road to capture them numbers. But yeah, there is a really dramatic increase in traffic when the highway is blocked, or when it's used as a flood-free route. The traffic is just incredible. Like, the amount of people relying on the road is just, I would love someone to personally come out and witness it.
Great, thank you, and I really thank you for representing the community.
Right. There's some other questions, Ms. Banham. I'll ask one very quickly. Do you have any idea, a rough number possibly, how many homes are on the unsealed section of Spooners Avenue?
There would have to be a minimum greater of 40 plus dwellings.
You're not sure? Okay.
No.
Thank you. Councillor Wyatt.
Am I allowed to ask questions of council team at this point or not? I just want.
Yeah, no, you're only asking questions of the presenter at the moment. Any other questions?
Thank you for your presentation. It was very thorough and very well informed. So thank you, Alex. And same for the previous speaker. Thank you. Yeah.
Councillor Saul, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, a question to the Speaker. I did notice when an email was sent out to fellow councillors that my name was absent from that email. Do you know what happened?
It possibly, to be honest with you, Dean, would have just been a genuine mistake that it was missed. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Any further questions? If not, thank you very much for your presentation, Ms. Banham, and thank you. We will consider it tomorrow and vote on the decision that's before us. But thank you very much.
I'm not allowed to ask a question on behalf?
No, you may not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to the next speaker, I'd like to apologise to our staff members online, manager of commercial business, Peter Allen. He's online and watching on. But we also have, for the very first time, attending virtually, our new Director of Utilities, Wes Trotter. So welcome, Wes, as in your new role, and thank you for attending virtually. Well done.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We now come to our third speaker, and that's Mary Lou Lewis, and she's speaking for 10.4, the draft local growth management. Come forward, please, and looks like you'll have to find the button and put on the red light. Thank you.
How's that? Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Thanks for inviting me to speak and or giving me the opportunity. Mayor, councillors, members, sorry, I've got my back to you. I'm just going to speak about the growth management strategy that's going up to council tomorrow. I've put in a submission on behalf of SPADCO, Stewart's Point and District Community Organisation, and I'm going to try and get through it in 5 minutes. It's a big issue, and so excuse me if it doesn't make any sense. No, it should make sense, but I'm going to have to rush because there's a lot there.
Thank you.
So first up, the growth management strategy talks about the North Coast Regional Plan, and I'm very happy that that's included in the strategy. The newer version has changed the goals from what was the principles, and I think the principles of the North Coast Regional Plan were very good, including two pertinent principles that are of interest to us at Stewart's Point, and that is a loss of and maintain environmental values. That was one of the principles of the regional plan, and that is now not the goal in this strategy. And the other one was that areas east of the highway were considered sensitive coastal lands, and I think that's really pertinent particularly for Stewart's Point. Stewart's Point is prone to flooding and is at risk from bushfire, so I think we are, and we should be, considered sensitive coastal lands. The North Coast Regional Plan also talks about the 5 Headlands Trail, which is one of your upcoming projects, and we don't know much about it, and we'd like to know more how that's going to impact us, if it's going to Grassy Head, how that's going to impact us. Don't know anything about it.
Okay, I'll invite you to look at the website, but continue, thanks.
All right. Opportunities to grow local jobs is mentioned in the North Coast Regional Plan, of which 104 jobs in the growth management strategies was selected, with the expected increase of 74 houses. I just want to make that clear that 74 houses is 74 houses and it won't expand greater than that. They've obviously picked the number to the capacity of our area. I say that because as part of the documents online for this meeting tomorrow was a document from Alum Property Group, who have proposed a development and since pulled out, but they were proposing a development of 1,000 equivalent 10, what is it? 1,040 accommodations. So I'm a bit nervous about numbers like that springing up. It was great to see that climate change was included and natural hazards, and that council are looking at site-specific level. Stewart's Point and District would really like a site-specific plan for risks, and if that could be given a date and some sort of movement on that, that would be great. And future studies that are being done externally may impact this growth management strategy, particularly in regards to flooding. So if something could be included in this strategy to say that
1 minute to go.
Changes would need to be done. 1 minute. Transport, we haven't got any transport, so I don't know how we're going to get out if we need to evacuate. Stewart's Point as a this 11.8 talks about Stewart's Point. It's located on Dunghutti country, it says here, but actually we're Namba country. The Indigenous community asked me to make that change. Some of the rezoning is concerning. We don't know why you want to rezone from an R5 to a E1 or a whatever the other one is, E4. I don't know where that's coming from. The sewerage scheme.
And that's your time. Sorry.
The sewerage scheme is huge.
Yes. We know.
I just want to make sure that you're planning for appropriate numbers. We have 3,000 visitors
Thank you.
through the year, and we're only looking at 1,000.
I have some further questions for you now.
Okay. Any questions?
Questions, please. Yes, Councillor White, please.
Yeah, thanks for coming along and speaking, and thanks for your submission too. What would you like us as councillors to do, either individually or collectively, in response to your public submission and what you're telling us today?
I think there's to make sure that planning is really secure for sustainability for the environment and for the community. So that there's not vague statements about, yes, we'll do some sustainable development. It should be clearly descriptive.
I've got two more questions.
Yeah,
okay, thanks. The second, you mentioned a site-specific plan for Stewart's Point and Fisherman's Reach in that area. I personally think that's quite a good idea, but what do you mean by that exactly?
I've been speaking with the resilience staff in council about educating the community about how to plan for a fire risk or a flood risk, and to have something in place so that we are all on the same page.
Okay. So that, all right. Okay. So your site-specific plan is around emergency services, fire, flood.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good idea. Oh, and final question then. Are you in favour of this plan? Is SPADCO in favour of the plan as it is?
With some of those changes.
So those changes around the secure planning and to be descriptively sustainable rather than stated, and the site-specific like emergency evacuation planning type thing.
And the change from Dunghutti to Namba.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Councillor Bain. Ms. Lewis, he's online.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Microphone. You're unmuted. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you, Mary Lou. I'm interested in your point about the rezoning to E1, which is to consolidate and my understanding to consolidate and expand the town centre. There's a discussion there also about diverting truck movements. Does that ring a bell for you?
Yes.
Are the truck movements a problem in Stewart's Point?
Well, we had a traffic study done by council, and it proved that they weren't showing that they were going over line or going too fast. But they're very heavy trucks, and there is a lot of pedestrians on the road. It's not an ideal mix.
Okay, thank you. And I have one more question, please. As part of the discussion about a structure plan, there's a suggestion of improving pedestrian amenity, so improving the walkability around there and planting of street trees. Would that be something that the community would support?
Definitely the providing facilities for walking, because people do walk on the road. There was just recently a car hitting a cyclist, very dangerous, on Grassy Head Road. And there's been an issue with many, many visitors walking on Grassy Head Road, which is a 80k zone, and they're walking to the beach thinking it's Christmas, and there's cars speeding past. That's a very dangerous combination.
Thank you, Councillor Bain.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm finished.
Right, thank you. Ms Lewis, if I could ask you a question, please. You mentioned evacuation of Stewart's Point. You're referring to a situation like that happened at Malakuta in Victoria. Is that the issue that you're talking about, evacuation? Could you explain the need for evacuation, please?
Well, I think if we do live amongst the gum trees and we live on a river and we do have a high groundwater table, so potentially any of those scenarios that are concerning those issues, fire and flood, would require an evacuation.
And you only have the one road?
And we have one road in. We do have a second road through Nambucca Council, which is Scott's Head. However, in flood times, that goes under. So they would hope to use Stewart's Point Road. The two caravan parks would need to use Stewart's Point Road, and the residents, the 750 residents. So at a time, if we were to evacuate, we need to do it orderly. We need a plan.
Yes, I understand that. Thank you. Would evacuating from the beach be an option, or is that too difficult, getting across the boardwalk?
Yes. We did a survey and we asked what people would do if we were in bushfire risk, and a lot of people said they would jump in the river. A lot of our community, 70%, I think, are aged.
Okay.
So jumping in the river isn't really a good option.
No, thank you very much. Any further questions, councillors? Councillor Patterson, please.
Just a couple of follow-up questions, Mrs. Lewis. Could you elaborate just a little? You only got 1 minute to do it. A little bit more on sustainability.
So if any development was to go ahead, I think consideration for drainage is very important so that it doesn't impact the existing homes and it doesn't impact the quality of the water in the arm of the Macleay and the groundwater of which we use for drinking. Sustainability in design in the house itself should be designed for fire and flood risks.
So that question, I suppose, that's about education, I suppose, that answer. But would you think sustainability, are you talking about the environment and people? Like, are you talking about sustainability of existing residents, sustainability of housing, sustainability of, because obviously it's such a lovely place, especially when it has a toilet, press button, and it'll have sewer eventually. You know, you're going to have a bigger population. So that's my question, sustainability for what the existing feel of Stewart's Point, like, you know, I don't know how long it'll be able to stay.
Your microphone's turned off. Thank you.
Sustainability is a very broad term, and that's why I brought it up, actually, to be more specific. I am thinking about the existing community as well as any future growth. They must be worked together sustainably for the environment, for the social, for the economic.
Because we've spoken in council here a number of times about affordable housing, you know. There's so many regulations for sustainability in front of it that won't ever happen. But do you think the possibility of future purchases in Stewart's Point with a just a report that went with the house or the property when someone burned it, that when someone purchases it, that gives them a real situation because of existing, because you're saying about, you know, possibly being landlocked when you're flooded, fire, etc. like that. I mean, do you think people are coming into the area not knowing those things?
Microphone.
Difficult question to answer because I don't know what they're thinking, but it would be good to be written on the lease that they are moving into a high-risk area and maybe they need to be responsible and do certain things to make their home more resilient.
Maybe something council could put in their race notice. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson, for that remark. But yes, we're asking questions, and if there are no further questions, I'm looking. There are none. I thank you very much for your presentation, and we will now move on to our
Thank you.
fourth speaker. Thank you very much. It's Sherry Muddle from South West Rocks, and she's speaking on 10.5, the South West Rocks Structure Plan. Welcome, and you have, well, there's a presentation as well. Thank you.
While that's getting set up, I just wanted to clarify on the agenda, it says I'm against this item.
Yes.
I'm speaking on behalf of Voice of South West Rocks, and in principle we support the draft plan, but I'm wishing to make some recommendations on how to strengthen it. I just need to clarify that before I begin.
Well, that's very clear. Thank you. You're actually against it as it is, and you want to make some changes. That's clear. Thank you.
I'd first like to acknowledge I'm standing here today on Dungari country and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I am a member of the Voices of South West Rocks community. We represent over 2,000 community members, and we share a commitment for the conservation of South West Rocks biodiversity, wildlife and cultural heritage values. So we galvanised after the Ridgeview clearing of native habitat, and this sparked a lot of community anger, grief and action. And as council are well aware, the zombie developments playing out in South West Rocks right now, Ridgeview and Rise, two recent ones, are resulting in mass land clearing in South West Rocks. These images are to illustrate the impact that these zombie developments are having. They are eroding the scenic amenities, the wildlife habitat, and they're adding pressure on our amenities. So we urge council to embrace the community's vision for a town where our people, wildlife and the local economy thrives. The structure plan provides an opportunity to do just that. The hundreds of public submissions make it overwhelmingly clear that the community wants more protection of the environment and landscapes in South West Rocks. A dominant request in the submissions was to rezone land to C2 for conservation. 82% of stakeholders strongly agreed that the South West Rocks landscape and environment is important to them. Cultural heritage also rated highly. So quickly run through some of the positives. I'm not familiar with, it's a bit slow. So we strongly endorse the proposed amendments to include wording that reflects the community's values, such as protect high environmental values and conservation zones to be protected and expanded where appropriate, and to reinstate or enhance wildlife corridors. In particular, we applaud and support the proposed land rezoning at Gordon Young Drive to C2. However, we urge you to go one step further and make this block, including Colliers, C1, National Parks and Reserves. Establishing a C1 zone in South West Rocks delivers a potential tourism benefit to council and national parks by combining immersive natural and cultural heritage aspects, which could be part of the Destination New South Wales 5 Headlands Trail. There's an opportunity to create a boardwalk with immersive signage through this area that would link new entrants through to the Ingenia Village and the South West Rocks Village. Gordon Young Drive is also a partial wetland, and the New South Wales Department of Planning states this area has high biodiversity values. So we urge the council to undertake an independent survey to identify threatened or endangered species habitat in this area. Settlers Ridge, the New South Wales Planning Department also identified Keith Andrews Avenue, pictured here, it's that first row of houses, as having high biodiversity values and being sensitive to impacts from development and clearing. So we support amending the zoning to C2 conservation. We also acknowledge the developer has a biodiversity stewardship agreement with council. So again, we urge council to the remaining uncleared forest here to be rezoned to C1 to help protect this area in perpetuity. The entire premise of the Southwest Rock Structure Plan is based on growth targets, and we feel this is flawed as it doesn't take into account carrying capacity, unnatural disasters, and suitability of land available. Growth targets are unreasonable given the poor state of infrastructure like roads and community facilities and services to doctors.
1 minute to go.
Growth targets also contradict Council's own rural residential land release strategy, which gave Saffron Rocks and Arakoon a D for environmental sustainable development. Saffron Rocks is vulnerable to flooding, as pictured here, sea level rise, tidal inundation and bushfires, and the town has been regularly cut off by floods from the Clay River. Given all of the above, the structure plan should be based on carrying capacity and the suitability of land coupled with the community needs, the high environmental values of the rocks and not growth targets. We recognise that regional areas must plan for future population growth, and therefore we strongly agree with the structure plan where it states we must ensure any new housing developments are respectful to the natural and cultural character of the land, conserve wildlife corridors, habitat and green space. This can be done by rezoning Gordon Young Drive and Settlers Ridge Stewardship Site to C1. We implore you to read the submissions and listen to the people. Therein lies the collective wisdom, knowledge and expertise.
Thank you very much, Ms. Muddle. It's a very impressive presentation with the slides. Well done. We would now seek any questions from councillors, and the first councillor is Councillor Riddington, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much for your presentation, Sherry. Very well done. And I really appreciate the work that the Voices of Southwest Rocks do and the research capability. Thank you. I think I like the and support the structure plan as well, but are you aware that we need this particular framework to move on to the assessment process for the KLEP?
Yes, I am aware of that.
Yeah, and it's very, very important. It may guide us, but it may not be formulaic.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So from your opinion, with the height limits that have been included and noting that they weren't there before, are you supportive of those height limits that have been included in the structure plan?
I'd need to confer with the group, and I'd also need to look at specific areas. My focus today, my background is tourism and environmental science, so that's why I've only focused on these specific points within the 5 minutes. So I wouldn't want to answer that without deferring back to our committee.
That's not a problem, but have a look at it. I think it's very good.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you again.
Thanks a lot.
Do we have any further questions?
Yes, please.
Councillor Wyatt, please.
Thanks so much. That's a great presentation. Just wanted to confirm a couple of things and then ask you a question. So your presentation is asking us to look at making some of those zones higher conservation values on Gordon Young Drive, and the other one was Settlers Ridge.
Yeah, particularly because there's a stewardship agreement with council, and I actually spoke to the developer in person, and he assured me that this biodiversity stewardship site would be protected in perpetuity. So I'd need clarity on how that is actually going to happen if we don't have the highest conservation zone for that area. And that was because as an offset of all the area that was cleared.
I agree with that, and I've raised that in another council meeting about how those things are managed. Okay, a question. So with the C1 zoning going into national parks, has Voices of Southwest Rocks sort of made any recommendations or talking to the state government about that?
It's down the pipeline, not as yet. We do have a petition and we've been invited to New South Wales Parliament to strengthen the planning laws and to overcome the issue of zombie DAs, which isn't just a local issue, it's a statewide issue. So we're really keen to work with council and work with supportive allies on that proposal and that idea.
Thank you, Councillor Wyatt. Councillor Riddington, please.
Thank you, Cherry. I'm a bit probably ignorant the best word. Do you have to get the state government involved to change it, like to C1 National Park? Do you have to do that? Like, is that a council job?
I don't know, to be honest. I couldn't give you a clear.
We can ask that later, Councillor.
Would you mind if I note that?
No, we can't do it now.
No, just note it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Muddle. A quick question from me, if I may. You're talking about Gordon Young Drive and the conservation values of the land. Are you talking about the land on the southern side that's undeveloped away from the caravan park? Is that what the land you're talking about?
Yeah. There's a straight stretch that runs parallel to Ingenia, the caravan park. Yeah.
So are you aware that in the past has been a reserved area of Crown land for a possible high school?
Yes, I am aware.
You see the conflict there, but yes.
Yeah, and that's in the draft structure plan. There is the amendment to rezone part of that area to C3, I believe, C4, for that very reason. But I'm recommending the whole area should be C1, C2 at a minimum because of the higher conservation value and the fact that it's a partial wetland and all the other reasons I listed.
So when you say it has high conservation values, has there been a study done on that by any group or authority that's produced a report on the need for it?
Well, yeah, if you go on the New South Wales state planning and you can put into the tool, the GIS, it brings up, it was in one of my slides, the colour coding of high biodiversity values. So that's been identified as by state government as having high biodiversity values.
You don't know when it was identified and by which department?
I don't know the year. I can look back. I had to chop this in half because of the time limit, but I would definitely have it on hand. I just deleted it from this.
Thank you for your answers. Are there any further questions? Councillor Patterson, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Shereen, for your presentation today. I got a few questions for you. You mentioned that you represent South West Rocks Voices. How many people is that?
So we're an incorporated entity and we have a private online group with 2,100 members.
In South West Rocks?
In South West Rocks. And to become a member, there's rules where you have to agree to adhere to.
So another question, community anger you mentioned too. What part of the community was that? Community anger on?
On the day of the clearing, there were about 200 people that came to actually protest.
Yeah.
But just talking anecdotally, I've spoken to dozens of people on how that site has impacted their mental health.
Yeah.
And the consequently the dust, the noise. We live quite close to that site. It's been, pretty disturbing and concerning for a lot of residents.
Yeah, and I'm only asking those questions because I need to get all the information in my head to make decisions. And the other question is, where do you live at South West Rocks?
I'm not going to.
Don't give me a street address.
No, near Settlers Ridge.
So you live where there used to be lots of trees, I'm guessing, and it was developed. That's what I'm saying. You lived in a developed area.
Well, yeah, where we could see a tree line. Yeah.
So sustainability. How do you propose sustainability for housing in South West Rocks, for instance, when sounds like trying to surround it with legislation to stop people building houses for sustainability?
Well, as I noted in my speech, sustainability is about a sustainable carrying capacity. It's about enjoying the natural resources without that being a finite resource. So if we just keep cramming in thousands of houses, is that sustainable in terms of our freshwater use, our drainage, our sewage? Just like Stuart's point, there's one road in, one road out. So there's also a huge safety issue of what do we do because these extreme weather events are going to become more and more frequent. So how are we going to deal with those issues? It needs to be looked at sustainably, and we need to look at the carrying capacity over just state-driven growth targets.
A couple more questions. Affordable housing is a very prominent issue that we have right across Australia. How do you see that we can achieve that with, restrictions of being less developments, like where you live, for instance, like less developments. How does affordable housing sort of match that? What's your idea on affordable housing?
Well, I don't think these recent developments in South West Rocks actually meet that criteria of affordable housing. I know many of my friends can't afford to buy a new house in this day and age, so it doesn't do anything to solve the housing crisis. And again, I think we need to look at the suitability of land where we can build, and that needs to be out of flood zones, and outside of areas that are sensitive and have high ecological value, because ultimately South West Rocks is paradise. People are lured to the town for its natural beauty, and if we just keep hacking away at the bush, it's also going to compromise our cutting edge as a tourism destination.
So, a couple more. You mentioned that you were in the tourism or are in the tourism business. Can I put it to you that maybe where would you want those people to stay, these tourists?
Can you be a bit more specific?
Where do you want them to stay? Where would you like them to stay?
Wherever their budget and preferences allow.
This in relation to housing.
There's national parks. Yeah. There's plenty of accommodation.
Yeah, and all those people, possibly like yourself, I don't know, but have returned because they've had a vacation in South West Rocks once. So, where do we put all those people? There's our issue. What do you think about that?
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councillor. I'll hear your point of order.
I believe that Councillor Patterson is getting away from the points that Cherry Muddle has made, and it's now entering into an argumentative area. I would suggest. Thank you.
Sorry, just trying to make a point about housing.
Okay. Well, the point is, I'll make it. Could Councillor Patterson? I'd ask you to make your question succinct about the issues that you want to get from the speaker, please. So make it short and quick, please.
Okay, sure. Well, the final question is just as a councillor who represents the whole community, we need to make decisions about housing, obviously. So my issue and my question to you is, how do you think we can do that, being the fact that South West Rocks is such a popular destination?
Yeah, being popular doesn't mean we have to put at stake why people come there. Like the Maldives is popular, Lord Howe is popular, but they all have carrying capacity. Every place has a limit. So that's the point I'm trying to make. And I think we need to be smarter and use our common sense and be a bit more strategic about where we place these new developments, not in flood-prone zones, not in bushfire zones, and not in areas that are going to push our endangered wildlife to the brink. So we need to be smarter and creative. There's plenty of available land around, but is it worth clearing healthy coastal forests for the sake of putting up a few extra tourists? And South West Rocks is also a world-class diving destination for the grey nurse shark. So, if people really want to come there, and they do from all over the world, they will find a place to stay. Even if they have to travel a little further, it is worth the drive to come to South West Rocks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I wasn't playing you or anything. I was just trying to gain information.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Another question, please, from Councillor White.
Yeah, you also mentioned that you're an environmental scientist, and the terms that you've used, carrying capacity, suitability, not using growth targets, and another one, which I love, is limits of acceptable change. Now, these are all terms that are used in land use planning and environmental science. Just wanted to ask, the Voices of South West Rocks is not opposed to development. It wants development within those four criteria. Is that correct?
Excuse me, order.
Is that correct?
Question.
My question. That's what my question was. Voices of South West Rocks is not opposed to development. It is after development within those four criteria. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Saul, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question to the Speaker, please. There seems to be a issue on height limits, and and we believe from submissions that 8.5 metres is a maximum that the community prefers. Is that what you're...
Councillor Saul, the Speaker has already said that she hasn't looked at the heights, and so we've already got that answer.
Misunderstood. Thank you, Mr.
And she needs to put such things to her committee, or the group. So, sorry, Councillor Saul, it's a question that doesn't need answering at this time. Yeah, thank you. If there are no further questions, I thank you for your presentation today. And I also thank all presenters today, Mr. Sproul, Ms. Banham and Ms. Lewis, as well as yourself, Ms. Muddle, for your presentations. And it's a great presentation for us. And thank you very much to all of you. With that, and a salute to democracy at work and free speech and respectful speech, thank you. That's the end of the public forum, and I thank you all for attending, and go home safely.